Hi everyone, and welcome to Hidden Shrine. Today we'll be looking at the Thoth, obviously by Aleister Crowley and Lady Frida Harris, alongside the Liber T Tarot of Stars Eternal by Roberto Negrini with artwork by Andrea Serio. So I'm going to be doing kind of a side-by-side flip through because the Liber T is based on the Thoth. It's not quite a Thoth clone, but it is based on the Thoth and heavily inspired. Now, before we get into it, let's talk a little bit about the main differences between the Liber T, Tarot of Stars Eternal. I'll probably just talk about it as the Liber T from here on out. The main differences between the Liber T and the Thoth that it's based on. So like I said, it's not exactly a clone deck, though it follows Lady Frida Harris's major Arcana designs specifically. It follows those extremely closely, as you can see here with the Fool. I would say that the Liber T is more of an interpretation of the Thoth and an expansion on the Thoth. The Liber T's major contribution appears in the minors, which you'll see in a bit, where you'll see they included, along with the pips, scenes and images from descriptions of the Egyptian Decans or Decans. So we'll talk about the differences in the Decans when we get to those. I want to get through the whole deck, so let's look at the majors first, and then when we get to the minors, we'll talk about the differences. And it's the minors, or the excluding the court cards and the aces, those minors, the 36 decanic cards, that's where the major difference is. But first, let's take a look at the majors. Okay, so I'm going to move these aside and we'll look at one at a time. Okay. So as you see, the artwork is based very closely here. You have all the symbols, and the thing with Lady Frida Harris's is there's so much information that's just compacted in there, and I think the use of sort of harder lines sometimes make some of these images hard to actually pick out. Now, I'm not criticizing the art style at all because I love Harris's art style, and I really do like sort of line art. But it does make it easier to miss out on certain images. So when you look at Serio's art here, he uses, I think, all colored pencil, which is a pretty crazy medium, and that's what gives it this beautiful soft quality. But you have all the same images here. So you have the butterfly, you have the bird, the two birds actually, the gem, the fire, the coins, the grapes back there, the tiger, the flowers, the two children intertwined, the alligator, the reeds, the sun. So it's got this more soft, almost cartoony look, which personally I just love. I love the look of this. So they're very different based on this, but I love the look of the Serio as well. So that's the Fool. All right, I'm not going to talk as much on each of these, but then you get the Magus, and yeah, there's this real great flow to Serio's art that feels, and also the bodies are more kind of broad and thick, and again more cartoonish, but almost cute in a lot of ways. But again, kind of you can kind of see the symbols more obviously in certain ways. And the same thing happens when you compare the Thoth to some of the Golden Dawn decks. The symbols are a little easier to pick out, which can be really cool and preferable in some circumstances, but others, I mean, the Thoth is one of my all-time favorites. So basically, if I'm saying anything about this, I'm not saying, it's better or anything like that. They're just different. The High Priestess. See, so you have some variation down here, but you have all the essentials. And some minor changes, kind of like look, she has, or at least it's more obvious that she has multiple arms. And her arms are going through these things of light. The way Serio interprets all the geometric lines is another distinction. So you see a lot of the same imagery going on here, but a little departure. Here you see the Empress. And I really love Serio's interpretation here. Very beautiful. The Emperor. I've always loved just how bright Harris's Emperor is, like he's inside of a furnace or something. It's a little more realistic lighting. I mean, I guess realistic, I don't know, normal, I guess, lighting in Serio's, but still retains all that's important. Then we have the Hierophant. The disturbing face from Harris is softened a bit. Well, everything's softened really, but now I love the way Serio's Lovers card looks. It's extremely beautiful, but you have, it's same image, but certain features kind of stick out more for me. And what does it say on there? Oh, the quiver actually says Thelema there, which is kind of interesting. So that's the will. Very interesting. All right, then we have the Chariot. And what I love is here you see, you can really tell there's a liquid in this. It looks more like a disc in this one, but of course it's the Grail. And here you see a little more of that Grail. Well, it definitely looks more like a container, a vessel, than it does a disc or like a mirror or something. But yeah, very interesting. I love this one. And this is actually what the back of the Liber T uses on the backs. But here we have adjustment. And simplified, but everything has been kept relatively close to the original. It's a bit more stylized, especially in the face. Aha! My favorite Hermit card, and this one that's based on it. I love both of these versions, but it retains all the important things. See what I mean by the light? The way that Harris shows refraction and all these like lines of light is softened, but he does retain, I guess, the geometry there. It's just less like in your face. But I always liked that it was really in your face in Harris's art. But I do like this one as well. And he's all hunched over here, whereas here, the Hermit looks like he's got a purpose. He's like slinking forward, which is, I don't know, interesting. I really like that pose. I like the pose on both of them. This one, I guess, seems a little more of a hermit-like pose. He seems a little more oppressed by the darkness, whereas this one, he's kind of moving forward. All right. I love the alligator on this one. It looks very cool. But yeah, pretty verbatim here. The background doesn't really have that swirling going on. A little bit, but very much subdued. I mean, it has this slight shade there, but it doesn't have these sort of watery patterns. All right, lust, or strength, which is called lust in the most of the Golden Dawn stuff. Again, pretty straightforward. The Hanged Man. This one is interesting because it looks like he's got a wound sort of where his heart would be. And his face kind of looks more like a hole, which is pretty interesting. But essentially everything else is more or less the same. The background here has a square that's a little more prominent, but other than that, Death. This is a great Death card. But here you could definitely see how it's more cartoonish with this sort of whale-looking thing. But yeah, just using the same sort of flow. Looks really good. And then we have art. I love that. I love the way there's more of this like sort of exaggerated, fluid roundness, I guess, to Serio's poses. Very stylized. I do like this devil card a lot. I think I actually like it more than this, just because I mean, I shouldn't say that I like it more, but that face is so disturbing. It's like a little too human. Whereas this, well, looks very alien to me, which, I guess both have their qualities there. All right, the Tower. A lot. He kept this kind of what's the term? Cubist? Is that it? Sort of cubist bodies, but everything else is less stark. But everything else is pretty much there that you're looking for. Got the Hellmouth down here. Yeah, so. And then we got the Star. I love Harris's Star. It is one of my all-time favorites. Definitely a contender for favorite. but see, it's sort of softened. All the same imagery is going on here. The star, I don't know. See, I have this smaller version of the Thoth, so I don't know if there's actual letters in there, but here you could see it's the Star of Babylon. All right, then we got the moon. Very much the same here. And the sun. Another one that's pretty much exactly the same. Well, not exactly. You know what I'm saying. Although, looking at it now, the order, not the order, but sort of, see Gemini's here, whereas Gemini's over here. And then Cancer's down here, Cancer's over here. That's very interesting. I wonder why that was done. That's very strange. Unfortunately, there is no, I mean, you get the little white booklet, right? But there's no book on the Liber T that I know of. I know Roberto Negrini wrote something that I think has to do with the Liber T, but it's in Italian and it's out of print, so I have not been able to find it, unfortunately. The Aeon. I love the face of the Aeon on Harris's. It's always been like one of my favorite faces, so so it's hard for this one to really match up for me. Serio changed the, in this instance, I would say there's almost a, like usually Serio stuff looks a little more, I hate to use the word cute, but you get what I'm saying. In this instance, Harris's is a little more cute. And finally, we have the universe. And of course, you can't compare to Harris's universe, but you got the same basic stuff going on here. Very cool. All right, that is the majors. All right, so like I was saying, you basically have, let's see, four parts in the deck. You have the majors, then you have the aces, then you have the court cards, and then the 36 cards that are left, those are the decanic cards, which relate to the decans or the decans of the Egyptians. I have another video where I talk a little bit about that, but I was gonna just give a quick little note on it. So, what do I mean by decanic images or decans? So, I had a little trouble initially getting my head around the concept of what a decan actually is, or finding or coming up with a relatively straightforward definition. If you were to see the word written out, it's D-E-C-A-N. As you can see in the words prefix, deca, it has to do with the number 10. So indeed, there are 36 decans, and each of them refer to a 10-degree patch of sky. 10 times 36 is 360 degrees, which is a full circle, right? With a rotation of the stars and the zodiac and everything. So the decans were initially used in Egyptian astronomy, and they became entwined with astrology over time. So each 10 degrees of sky falls within a certain constellation. So for instance, Taurus has 3 decans. Taurus 1 is ruled by Mercury, Taurus 2 is ruled by the moon, and Taurus 3 is ruled by Saturn. And then these 3 decans are associated with 3 cards, specifically the 5 of Pentacles, 6 of Pentacles, 7 of Pentacles. And then, you know, each decan has a card associated with it. So each of these decans, or 10-degree patch of sky that fall within a certain constellation, had associated with them certain images, and we have descriptions of these images, these decanic images, from various ancient writers and cultures. So the Picatrix, which is an old Arabic treatise on star magic and talismans, that's one of the sources. Then there's some Vedic sources from India, and then Latin, like the Liber Hermetis. There's Agrippa. There's Bruno, I think, and then later there's Crowley. He talks about it in Liber 777, and then the Golden Dawn also. They have Liber T, which was then revised to be Liber Theta, which is basically like more Thelemic, I guess. So that is basically what I've come up with. That's sort of my definition based on a little bit of research and what I understand about what the decans actually are. So I've already run through the sources, but on page 5 of the little white booklet, Negrini actually tells us which books were used. So he says, the scenes, which in this new version from the background and animate the numbered arcana, come from an esoteric and artistic reworking of the various magical images of the decans coming to us through the Sublime Books and the Liber Hermetis of the Corpus Hermeticum, the Indian astrological tradition, the Latin manuscripts of the Arab text Picatrix, Renaissance writings of Agrippa, Bruno, and the iconography of Hermetic historical monuments such as the Hall of the Months in Palazzo Schifano in Ferrara, frescoed with decans in 1470 by Francesco Cosa, blah, blah, blah. So as I mentioned in another video of mine, I've had some luck tracking down the decanic descriptions that Negrini mentions, but some others are a little harder to find. The sources all have slightly, and in some cases quite a bit, different descriptions of these decanic scenes or images. But it seems that Negrini used all the descriptions and kind of did a little picking and choosing from each description to sort of make an amalgamated image for each decan. So that's where the main difference in this deck. So you saw how the majors were very similar, but, you know, some departure here and there. It is the decanic minors where the main differences are in the Liber T, because they actually show these little scenes from the different writings. Okay, first we have the Ace of Scepters, or the Wands. Similar thing here. And it's very similar in the Golden Dawn decks too. All right, here's our first instance of a decanic image. So you have the regular pip kind of mimicked here, but now you have this sort of star field up here showing the rulers of this decan. And if you read the decanic description, it describes this man with these burning red eyes, and describes like the way he's wearing this loincloth, and he's got these animal feet, and he's kind of very dark looking. So that figure comes straight from the decanic descriptions. Now, I'm not going to go through each of them and describe them. You could just look at them, but suffice it to say, they come from the decanic descriptions. I love that one. And this is one of those few decks, or a lot of decks that I really love often have a couple or more than a couple of cards that I'm like, ugh. The Liber T, I think I love pretty much every single card. There is one card that I'm kind of like, it's ugly, which I will point out when we get to it. And with all these scenes, there's just so much to look at, which is really awesome for intuitive reading. And it's also just really crazy interesting when you look at the decanic descriptions, and sort of try see how those descriptions were interpreted and what the heck they could mean, because they then lead to all these other strings you can follow, you know, mythological or astrological, historical, blah blah blah. But of course I'm most interested in the mythological, so those are a lot of fun to figure out for me, or at least think about. And then we have the court cards, and they're very, again, like the majors, they're very close to Harris's, but you again have this sky here, which looks really beautiful, so you can better see the astrological symbols associated. Very similar, but some very obvious changes as well. Still keeps all the meaning intact, or at least a lot of the meaning. I love this one. Yeah, that's just so cool. The Queen. Oh, look how beautiful the pose of that cheetah is. That's so cool. And then the Knight. Here we have the Ace of Cups, and again we have Babylon written there. Very interesting. And then we return to the decanic images. And they kept, so the Two of Cups, yeah, this is one where the pips were kind of imposed on, you could say. But you still have all the same images. Instead of these fish, you have these funny looking dolphins like spewing out whatever. And then the rest would be the decanic description. Love that. Oh yeah, this one's so cool. Got the little nipple pinch, which actually has some specific meaning. It's not just, I mean, it is playful for sure, but there's some sort of, I forget, it has a name that's related to, I think, the Virgin Mary, and of course the typical Madonna image is thought to be based on an image of Isis and Horus, I think. If I'm wrong, please correct me. So cool. I love this one. You have all these different manners of sex here. You have the man and the woman in the center here going at it. You have the man and the man over here going at it. And a little 69 action over there. Okay, here's the card that I think is hideous. I mean, it's like kind of cool, but this little mosque is just kind of stupid looking. Sorry. I mean, even so, this card is still cool looking, but if I had one card in the whole deck that I didn't love, it would probably be this one. So cool. And in some of these instances, you could see where the Golden Dawn and the Thoth got their keywords from, related to the decanic descriptions. Oh, okay, so we're back to the quartz here. So, yeah, the quartz have some departure as well, but they're largely, I think, based on the composition from the Thoth, from Harris. And again, you could see the imagery relatively clearly. Or at least when you compare the two, I think the images stick out more, which is really cool when you're studying the decks. Yeah, this one's quite different, but still beautiful. The Knight. Love that. All right. And here's a big difference as well. The sword is coming out of the crown as opposed to stabbing it. Which is very, very interesting indeed. All right. We got the swords with their decanic images. I love this one. This actually looks like the Aeon. Let me see. Do I have it over here? I think it's the same face there. Oh, okay. It's not the same, but it's very similar. All right. 3 of Swords. 4 of Swords. Oh, that's so cool. So I haven't actually even see there's that pose again. I have some notes saying what exactly that pose is, but I'm blanking a little bit on it right now. Wow, that's cool. I love this one. So I've looked at the decanic descriptions for, I haven't looked at them all yet. I've looked at maybe 10 while studying the cards. So only a couple of these am I familiar with right now, as far as like what the original images are. All right, and we're back to court cards. That's pretty similar. Very cool. That's awesome. That's so neat. This is one of my favorite knights, the Knight of the Sword from the Thoth. There's so much movement, and love his little, like, I don't know, just reminds me of dragonfly wings. All right, final suit, I believe. We got the discs. And here you have flipped on the side and with the decanic image above. Three of discs. 4 of discs. 5. You can see Isis at the top there. Oh, I think, is she doing this too? I think she's gesturing toward that, but it's not quite the same. This is a card I have done a lot of study and reading and writing about, which I'll talk about in another video. But yeah, this is one. Hint, hint. This is one that's received a lot of my attention. The 9 of Discs. And the 10 of Discs. Wealth. That one's really cool. Hey, focus. There you go. And the images are a little different. You actually have a lot of them put on here with some other images coming out. And then it's hard to mess with the Princess of Discs. It's such a cool card. I do like the volume of her coat in Serio's version, though. Riding the bull. He looks cool. He looks kind of like relaxed almost. I mean, I guess they both do. Relatively relaxed. And here the bull really is just lying down. That's great. This is a cool one. Very close to the original, at least in sort of the feel of it. I love those horns. And finally, the Knight of Discs. Very, very close to the original, except the shield isn't radiating light. Yeah, so that is the Liber T side-by-side flip through with a Thoth, and maybe too many of my thoughts and comments. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed flipping through this and hearing a little bit about the Liber T, and maybe even getting some new ideas about the Thoth. I mean, I focused way more on the Liber T in this video just because, I mean, pretty much everyone knows the Thoth already, and this is sort of just, it's definitely a cool tool. It's quickly becoming my favorite, possibly my favorite deck. I've been using it pretty much nonstop since I got it a couple, I don't know, maybe like a month ago now. And I don't know if it'll top the Thoth for me, but it's really great, I think, as a study tool to the Thoth, and just on some stuff that, especially the decans, the stuff that the Thoth references very subtly, but it's just a cool way to look into that sort of stuff some more and get an idea for maybe why things are the way they are in Crowley and Harris's version. All right, everyone, I hope you are well. I'm not sure when I'm going to upload this, but whenever it is, have a lovely day, evening, and a lovely week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.